Verification of hundreds of refugees in Cape Town is set to continue until Friday. They've been camping around Green Market Square, but the city won a court order, you'll remember last week, paving the way for their removal. It's unclear at this stage if alternative accommodation is available or where the refugees will want to move next. For more on this, we're joined by the Cape Town Mayoral Committee member for Safety and Security, JP Smith. He joins us via Skype, I believe. JP, afternoon to you. On to begin with the verification process, where are we with that?
It appears that at this stage, the majority of people outside of the church have now gone for verification. Fewer of the people inside the church, because remember, the court rulings don't apply to them. And today, for instance, 80 families went for verification at Salt River. And over the past week, it sounds like a fairly steady stream of people. Friday is the last date because it's 7 court days. So Friday is the last date for that process. And then the Department of Home Affairs will have to indicate how they're able to support the individuals that have gone for assessments or screenings.
And is it still 600 people altogether that you're dealing with, JP?
I think a little bit over 900, about half inside, half outside. But I can tell you that on the outside, the numbers have been increasing steadily. We are definitely seeing more people outside. So over the last 2-3 weeks especially, we've seen people join the ranks of people outside the church.
And there was a great deal of tension, of course, between yourselves as the city and the foreign nationals themselves, the leaders saying that you've not treated them fairly. Now, the court saying you are to proceed with this process that stems from the violation of bylaws. What is the level of cooperation between yourselves and this group as you continue with the verification process, at least at this stage?
It looks like the individual refugees are happy to cooperate. I mean, many of them were misled. The court said so. The court expressed its disgust with how the leadership had misled them, including blatantly lying to them and mistranslating the commentary from UNHCR and otherwise. So we're working well with the people on the ground. Where I think we're going to get into trouble is when it reaches the next phase, because there are some of the refugee leadership that seem to be committed to violent outcomes, who said during interviews in the last week that they will do whatever it takes to stay there. They're not intending to leave, not intending to go anywhere. But the situation on the street is simply untenable. You look at today, we've got heat wave temperatures today. It's really hot outside. I feel for people trapped on those hot sidewalks under those conditions. And it's unsustainable. We can't go on like this longer. And it's having a devastating impact on the businesses, hotels, residents, tourism, the informal traders and everybody around there, and they're all beseeching us with complaints.
On that note then, JP, my apologies for interrupting. On that note, I want to ask you about what the plan is as far as resettlement is concerned. Where will these people go?
So the courts didn't require government to resettle them. The court said that there was no xenophobic violent incident that created the situation. They placed themselves in the circumstances. And as such, government is not responsible for finding them alternative accommodation. That's why they've had this last week to return or reintegrate to the communities where they were living a few months ago, or find alternatives. But the government is not being held responsible for their welfare. And if you did hold government responsible, you may then well, in Cape Town alone, become responsible for the welfare of about another 160 to 170,000 refugees and asylum seekers. And that's an untenable situation. And I think the court acknowledged that. The provincial minister of human settlements is looking at the situation to look at how we assist the vulnerable individuals. But broadly, the government, not local, provincial or national, is going to be responsible for accommodating people.
You speak of assisting the vulnerable people in this group. What then becomes the definition of vulnerable at this stage?
So they're referring to children and the mothers of those children. So I think that the Department of Social Development and otherwise is willing to assist and will assist with access to shelters and second phase accommodation as best possible, but understand that those are institutional shelter options. They're not permanent accommodation, because if you do that, the precedent you set would apply elsewhere in South Africa, would apply to many thousands more people in Cape Town. And I think that when you start prioritizing foreign nationals without actual xenophobic violence, the reaction from locals who are all on waiting list is going to be significant.
But then the other problem with that, JP, if you are not as a city going to concern yourself with where these people eventually set up their next home, is that it could very well be in another area where you as a city would not want them to set up structures. So is it not in your best interest as the City of Cape Town to make sure that as many of them as possible are eventually going to stay in areas where it's not in any way going to interfere with the running of the city?
So that's why we assisted eagerly with the verification and reintegration options. We, prior to the court decision, made 2 days available with resources and vehicles to assist people to reintegrate. So we're keen to assist them, and we made arrangements without the court compelling us to do so. But remember, in 2008, when we provided for refugees during the xenophobic attacks at that time, it was done on the basis of activating the Disaster Management Act. That cost the city 200 million rand. We had to rebuild the facility to which we gave people temporary access to for 40 million rand, and it ended up with an eviction order in any case. So you'll understand that the city has been loath to go there, and the church is discovering the hard way what the consequences are of good deeds in this regard. So everybody is understandably nervous about precedent and consequences, because keep in mind, we also have many thousands, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of local people who are watching this very carefully to see what the circumstances are.
JP Smith of the City of Cape Town, thank you.